Hello, my name is Patrick Johnson, and I'm here today to talk to you about stopping workplace violence. It's not a part of your job. In doing that, I'm going to discuss a couple of different topics. The first one is, what is workplace violence? The second one is, who can it happen to? The third one is, the types of workplace violence that occur. The fourth one is, violence that causes harm. The fifth one is, national cost of domestic violence. The sixth one is, preventive measures that can be taken to prevent it. And the seventh one is warning signs that lead up to it. Now that you know what we're going to be discussing, let's proceed forward and talk about what is workplace violence. Workplace violence is violence or the threat of violence against workers. It can occur at or outside the workplace. It can range from threats and verbal abuse to physical assault and homicide, one of the leading causes of job-related deaths. Over 2 million American workers are victims of workplace violence each year. More than 2,000 people are murdered. Workplace violence can strike anywhere, and no one is immune. As you know what workplace violence is, who can it happen to? Workplace violence can happen to anyone. Anyone is subject to workplace violence. So don't feel that you're in the clear. Always have your guard up. As you know a little about who can it happen to, let's talk about the types of workplace violence. First, you have criminal intent violence, which the perpetrator has no legitimate relationship to the business or employees, usually committed in conjunction with other crimes. Then you have your client, customer, or patient violence, which is the perpetrator has a legitimate relationship with the business, usually occurs while the perpetrator is being served by the business. Then you have your worker-on-worker violence, which is the perpetrator is an employee or past employee of the business. The perpetrator attacks or threatens another employee or past employee in the workplace. Then you have your personal relationship violence, where the perpetrator has a relationship with the victim, not the business. Includes domestic violence, assaults, or threats that occur at work. Now let's talk about the breakdown as far as percentages. Which one is the least that happen and which one is the greatest that happen. The one that's going to happen most of the time is going to be your criminal intent violence, which is 85% of all workplace violence. And the least is going to be your client, the customer, or patient violence, which leads up to 3% of workplace violence. Then you have your worker-on-worker violence falling in at 7% of workplace violence, and personal relationship violence falling in at 5% of all workplace violence. Now that you know the types of workplace violence, let's talk about the violence that causes harm. You have your non-physical violence, which is intimidation, verbal abuse, and threats. You also have physical, which is kicking, punching, overly aggressive physical contact. Then you have your aggravated physical, which is guns, knives, or broken bottles. Anything dealing with weapons. Now that you know the violence that causes harm, let's talk about the national cost of domestic violence. The health-related cost of rape, physical assault, stalkings, and homicide by intimate partners exceeds $5.8 billion each year. Of this total, nearly $4.1 billion is for victims requiring direct medical and mental health care services. Lost productivity and earnings due to intimate partner violence accounts for almost $1.8 billion each year. Intimate partner violence victims lose nearly $8 million or 8 million days of paid work each year, the equivalent of more than 32,000 full-time jobs and nearly 5.6 million days of household productivity. So it has a large effect. Now that you know the national cost of domestic violence, let's talk about the preventive measures. Things that you should consider when trying to prevent such violence from happening. First, you want to be aware of the warning signs of violence. Make sure that you can identify it. Mentally prepare for the what-if situation. What if it occurs? What are you going to do? And then obviously you want to understand company procedures about violent situations. What role do you take and what do you do if a situation were to occur? Then you want to be aware of the weapons brought into the workplace. Observe anything and everything that takes place. And then take all threats seriously. Don't take someone saying that something's taking place as someone crying wolf and being weak. Make sure you address the situation and make sure that you take care of it and squash it. And then once all this is done, obviously you want to alert the management immediately if any of the prior occur. Warning signs of violence. You have your stage 1, which is unusual behavior changes. uncooperative with direct supervisor on a regular basis. And things that lead up to this are cursing profusely, argues with coworkers constantly. Then you have your stage 2, which plays the role of a victim, writes violent or sexual notes to other employees or management, and verbalizes desires to harm coworkers or employers. Then stage 3, intense anger is the frequent emotion displayed. It results in depression or withdrawal, property destruction, or physically fighting. Now that you know the warning signs and the stages, let's review what we talked about today. We talked about what is workplace violence. We also talked about who can it happen to, types of workplace violence, violence that causes harm, national cost of domestic violence, preventive measures, as well as warning signs. Now I want to leave you with something. Be safe, not sorry. Despite improvements in some areas, workplace violence is still a serious matter. Awareness is the first step in preventing the workplace violence. So, what am I trying to say? Be proactive in any situation that you encounter that contributes to workplace violence. Make sure you stop it. Stop workplace violence. The information was gathered from American Institute on Domestic Violence in the Workplace Statistics 2001, as well as Griffith University. It was also research from the Ministry of Labor, Ontario, California, the National Institution for Occupational Safety and Health, Workplace Violence Prevention, Strategies and Research Needs, as well as the ProQuality Resume.com, as well as School of Criminal Justice of Rutgers University. Thank you for your time.